Well, if we tomorrow found something older than the Codex Sinaiticus,
Yeah.
yes, that pulled into question the existing verses that are in even the NIV,
Yep.
we could say that we could end up with a Bible. You could be following false verses or stories that don't actually exist in the Bible today.
What we find from textual criticism is that textual criticism disproves the Quran. Because the Quran
I told
says...
you, for the argument's sake, we're atheists, but you're trying to go into the Quran.
I am talking to you like an atheist, but you're an atheist holding an Islamic channel, so I'm speaking to your views.
Bob,
I'll be checking.
check this, Bob. You know as well as me that that is a bit of an underhanded little uppercut. Now, if we get Hashim over here or Mansour over here, they'll be able to answer that in 2 seconds. They have done
Then
before,
why didn't they
but you
answer that
don't
when Hatun
accept
gave
it. That's
them the
the
chance?
problem. They have Hatun
gave them the chance.
Do you know they've stopped debating Hatun?
Hatun demolished.
You know they've stopped
Demolished Mansour.
Now,
Go and look at
that's
the debate on
embarrassing.
DCCI.
You're embarrassing
Go and
yourself
look at
now.
والصابئين لا خوف عليهم.
If ISIS is coming, how many
Where is
We don't believe in God at all.
Bob,
How do you know I haven't subscribed?
Bob, I have a question. I already know you're subscribed.
How do you know I haven't subscribed?
Congratulations.
Congratulations, 40,000 I think it is.
Thank you, Bob. Thank
Congratulations.
you. So,
Your reach is global.
it is global,
It
my
is
friend. That's what we're
global.
trying. I've got a question for you, Bob.
You can
Are
ask
gonna
a
answer
question.
it?
I'll do my best. Depends what the question is.
All right, let's go over here for a bit. Come on. Whoa.
Are you
Easy, easy.
entering into debate now? Okay, you
Just a
get
quick
filmed
question,
as
'cause I gotta get back
well.
to the
Okay,
camera. Come on,
yes,
let's go over here.
Okay.
Bob, explain to me, you know, the history of the Bible itself, yeah? Interesting question. I want to ask that, you know, the authenticity of the actual Bible itself. Why is there a difference between the New Testament and the Old Testament? It's a serious question because I'm interested to see what you'll say. Because no one's asked you that question, I don't think. Have they asked you that
Are we
question?
talking about theologically?
No, we're talking about historically looking at the documents. For example, in the British Library, isn't it, where the
Yeah.
Codex Sinaiticus.
Yeah.
Is it true, as a Christian, I'm asking you as a Christian, is it true that there's differences in the Old Testament and the New Testament? Genuine question.
When you say between the Old Testament and the New Testament, what
Verses,
specifically are you
well, what I
referring
heard was.
to? Oh, you talk. Go on.
Let me tell you what the claim is.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not my claim.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
asking you information on
Yeah.
it. That there's verses that are in the old. Sorry, not Old Testament, New Testament. In the KJV and the NIV. Yeah.
Are we talking about quotations of the Old Testament in the New Testament?
We're talking about verses that are in the KJV
King James
version that are not in the NIV. Is this? You understand those?
Yeah,
You know about that, yeah?
Yeah.
And that exist in the Codex Sinaiticus.
Exist in the Codex Sinaiticus.
Yeah, you know the Codex Sinaiticus.
So what are you talking about? Are you talking about the Comma Johannan?
They don't exist in the Codex Sinaiticus.
They
I
don't
rephrased
exist
that.
in-
Sorry, my mistake.
Are we talking about the Codex? Are we talking about the Comma Johannan?
No, we're talking about the Codex Sinaiticus.
Can we,
There's in the
can we
British
give
Library.
Can you give an example to discuss? Because the only one that
Of course. For example, you know the story of the adulteress.
Yes.
So that's
In John
exists in KJV, correct?
Yeah.
But it's not. It doesn't exist in the NIV.
That's correct.
Is that the reason it doesn't exist in the NIV? Is that because it doesn't exist in the Codex Sinaiticus?
Right.
So the Codex is now.
I understand your question now. I
That's fine.
understand your
Let me just clarify for myself.
Yeah.
The Codex Sinaiticus itself. Do you believe it to be the oldest complete New Testament text that we have today?
So there's
Yeah, go for
multiple questions there.
Oh, sorry. Actually, it's just one question. I'll simplify it, yeah, just to not complicate things. Do you believe the KJV and the NIV, there's a difference in there or not?
Right, okay, so that will be the question that I address. Firstly, I'd like to say to everyone who watches on SCDawah, the question implies many things that are not necessarily true of the Christian faith. The premise of the question is sound in that the NIV and the KJV do have different verses. So one example of that would be in John chapter 7 verse 53 to John chapter 8 verse 11. You find that in the KJV, but you don't find it in the NIV.
Correct.
Another example of this would be what's known as the Comma Johannan, which is in John 5:7. These are textual variants that, in terms of the New Testament manuscript, don't appear in our earliest manuscripts. The KJV, was using the text that the church had at the time, which was dated to the 10th century. And it was a translation based upon a guy called Erasmus, his third critical edition of the New Testament, which was translated into English and contained passages, some passages that were actually put into the text in the 15th century, like the Comic of Hanan in John 5:7. Now, as a Muslim, when you hear that, what you hear is, well, the Bible's been corrupted and therefore it's not trustworthy. That's what you hear, because that's what you've been told to hear inside the mosque.
Not really. No. Wait. Let me just clarify that and you carry on. To be fair, that's not true, is it? I haven't been told that in the mosque or anything. I heard about that. I read it online. So I came to you fairly, and I questioned you. Okay. And you're answering it, and that's no problem. So that's not. But
I have heard it in mosques that I have attended.
You've heard it in mosques?
I've heard it in mosques that I have attended as a visitor, where that kind of argument and logic is being put forward. Now, there's a couple of points to respond to that I would have to say. Firstly, we Christians don't look at our Bible like you look at the Quran. You look at the Quran like it's Nazil. It's literally ad verbatim the word of Allah. It goes from Allah, it goes to the angel Gabriel, it goes to Muhammad, and then it goes to the scribe, and there's no human influence.
That's right.
Now, the fact of the matter is that there is evidence of human influence in the text of the Quran.
We'll do that
but
later.
That's not the topic.
We can do that next time. Go on.
The Christians look at the Bible differently. We do not believe that the Bible is the ad verbatim word of God. That is not our belief. When I invite you to the Christian faith, I'm inviting you to believe in something radically different from what you already believe. I'm inviting you to believe that human beings wrote in their own words, inspired by the Holy Spirit, what God was doing in history, what God values, what is true about God and about the way that we should live. But it was human men writing in their words. There's no promise of divine protection. Now, the reason why I trust the New Testament is because these two examples that we've given in John 8, the Comic of Hanan in the first epistle of John, what do they actually evidence? They don't evidence that the entirety of the New Testament manuscript is corrupt. It actually doesn't evidence that. It doesn't evidence that, it doesn't prove that. Because what happened is what scholars call the tenacity of the text. The New Testament was written by many people in many different places at the same time. There was no systematic control. And what we found when that occurs is that there are many differences between those manuscripts, but the differences themselves are as varied as the manuscripts. And so it's very easy to identify where the text is corrupted. Very easy. So much so that we Christians honestly, openly, and without any embarrassment, show these texts to the world. That's why you know about it.
So what you're saying is, okay, that's fair. That's actually that's a fair answer, yeah. So there is a difference. What included in that question, if you don't mind, Bob, is that this is the main thing that I come to, right? So now, if there is differences, you're fine to say, your claim is that it's not serious enough to change the main message of the Bible. Is that what you're implying?
In terms of Bart Ehrman, who's one of the leading critical scholars on the New Testament, he's not, as you well know, he's not a friend of Christians. He's an apostate. He's made his career out of attacking the fundamentalist position held by some Christians. So, in terms of Bart Ehrman himself states that no essential Christian doctrine is affected by any textual variant. That's the position of Bart Ehrman. It's also the position of Daniel Wallace, who's a doctorate of the equivalence to Bart Ehrman. So it's also the position of Bruce Metzger. So the position of scholarship is, yes, there are manuscript problems, but no, they don't affect essential Christian
So there's verses
doctrine.
missing, and I think stories, and there's all books missing, correct, at times. But the fact is,
When you say all books, what do you mean?
no, what I mean is, there's the New Testament is made of smaller books. Is this correct?
Yes.
Now, are there books that exist in the Codex Sinaiticus that don't exist in the New Testament? Oh, sorry, in the NIV.
In the Codex Sinaiticus, the canon had not been formalized by the church.
Okay.
And so there are books included in Codex Sinaiticus that the church, when it formalized the canon, didn't include.
So there are, okay.
But
Now,
that's not a case, doesn't make the argument that you're trying to make.
I'm not, now be fair on this, Bob, I'm not trying to make an argument, I'm asking you a question.
Yeah,
Now, watch
yeah.
this. Do you know what comes in my mind? Like this, look, watch.
Yeah.
So, for example, let's say those verses are missing or those books are missing from the existing NIV, the New Testament, the New
Yeah.
Testament of today.
Yeah.
What if, now that's due to the Codex Sinaiticus being found and having certain books not existing there, is that correct, yeah?
I do apologise. State your question again. I am sorry.
Oh, well, that's fair.
I'm
That's
trying
fine.
to find
yeah, it's
something in
okay.
here.
You were looking in there. Look.
Yeah, go on.
So, for example, the existing New Testament has had verses and books removed from it today because the Codex Sinaiticus has been found as the oldest existing, fullest New Testament, and it doesn't have those verses and books in there. Correct?
No, the scholarship that leads to these the scholarship that leads to these kind of manuscript variations doesn't just base itself on the Codex Sinaiticus. It does it based upon every available text that we can
They
find.
came later, of course.
No, not just that came later. That actually came earlier.
The smaller parts.
So
right?
it compares fragmentary evidence.
Fragments,
it compares Paul pamphlets. It compares the entirety of New Testament documents that we have.
I
It
understand.
compares
The
them.
smaller parts that
It
you had, et cetera,
identifies
et cetera.
the variations
And finds them.
and then highlights those variations. Now hold on one second.
Go on.
The fact of the matter is that the vast majority of variations in the text, scholars have already said, don't have any play at all. They're not translatable. They can't even be translated because they're differences in spellings. Now, if we take the same standard, and this is what the people who are listening to this really need
Before
to
you
hear.
go there, can I just ask one
No,
thing?
no, let me-
What-
no,
Let me explain. Let me
Let
explain
me
why.
finish
Because
this
I was
point.
asking.
Please let me finish this point before
one
you ask
one
your
thing,
next
because-
question.
Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you.
There's a reason because
So let
it's
me
attached
finish
to the
this
question
point,
I'm
and
asking.
then you
but
can
go
ask
on.
your
Go
question.
ahead.
So, if we take this standard of textual criticism
Yeah.
and we apply it to the manuscript evidence that we have of the Quran, we find the Quran has a similar problem.
I don't believe that's the truth, Bob. But, however,
Yeah.
let me get on to my next question. Like I
Okay.
said, by the way, it's not a next question. It's the question to do with the whole question I've asked you. Now, Bob, if we tomorrow found something older than the Codex Sinaiticus,
Yeah.
yes, that pulled into question the existing verses that are in even the NIV,
Yeah.
we could say that we could end up with a Bible. You could be following false verses or stories that don't actually exist in the Bible today. Do you understand where I'm coming from or not? Do you
You
understand
do,
the question?
but I have to say this, that
Yeah.
the premise of your question is faulty because we've already found documents that are older than Sinaiticus.
No, I meant, sorry.
The
I
oldest-
meant that if they're missing, because look, and
Yeah,
Codex
and then-
Sinaiticus is missing
then-
verses
and
and
shall I tell
stories.
you?
I'll just finish.
Okay.
They're missing verses and stories in the Codex Sinaiticus.
Yeah.
So we updated the Bible of today. Tomorrow, if we find a book that is older than the Codex Sinaiticus,
Yeah.
a fuller version of the New Testament, it is possible that we'll find out there's other verses and stories that are also problematic in the existing NIV. That's understandable,
Well,
yes?
that's theoretically possible, but you've got to understand that as Christians, we don't base our faith upon what the Bible says alone. The scriptures were born of the church, and the church had a testimony before the New Testament was written.
Okay.
And that testimony predates the
Verbal?
the-
Verbal.
Yes, it was a verbal testimony.
Verbal testimony.
That was
Like
then-
hadith.
yes,
I'll throw that in there.
But the difference is the hadith were written 240 years later.
they were.
The New
Oh, stop.
Testament was
They
written
were.
within the
No,
lifetime of
guys,
the
please.
apostles.
Sorry, brother.
No, hold on one
Bob,
second.
Oh, no, Bob, can I just address that? It wasn't written. No.
They
Be
were
fair, Bob.
written.
No, written.
Textual evidence
no,
says that.
Bob. As I said, as you said, verbal, the hadith were in existence verbally, correct? They were compiled 250 years later. Is that what you're saying, Bob?
What I'm saying is,
But were they there
don't think I
verbally?
understand what
That's why I
hadith
just want to
means.
No,
clarify
actually,
first.
actually,
because
no.
I don't want to slip into, because I came here to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I don't want to slip into a Quranic Islamic talk. Pretend
Yeah.
you're talking to an atheist, for example.
Yeah.
You love that, don't you, Bob? Now listen. That's why I'm coming to ask you simple questions about the Bible.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to explain to me about that, but verbally, even if you did refer to the hadith, verbally they were in existence. Just like you're saying, verbally, the church fathers were talking about certain Christian laws or verses or books that are not included in Codex Sinaiticus?
So your analogy is flawed for multiple reasons.
Oh.
It's flawed because the hadiths textually don't exist until much later, 200 years
That's
later.
exactly what I said verbally.
The New
Were they in
Testament-
existence? By the way, there were.
The
A lot of
New
them were written down
Testament-
prior to
the
that.
New Testament.
Now you're
the
going
New
off on this,
Testament-
Bob. That's not
I'm
fair.
coming back to the New Testament.
That's not very fair,
The
is it?
New Testament was written within 90 AD. That is the consensus of Bart Ehrman, Bruce Metzger, Dan Wallace. 90 AD. So the New Testament
I'd
is
have to
far
check that, Bob.
closer. Yeah, do
I'd have to
please,
check that.
and so should your viewers. The New Testament is far closer to the reality of the time that it describes than the hadiths.
When was the
and
Codex-
therefore is much more reliable. Now,
No,
hold on one
I
second.
wouldn't say that because verbally, like I said, the hadith were in existence. I won't let you get
Yeah.
away with that one, Bob.
I just
However,
wanna-
what I will ask
I just
is
want to
when was-
illustrate a point. I want to illustrate
Okay,
a point.
afterwards, can you let me know when the Codex Sinaiticus was actually found?
so-
Sorry, when it was actually written down. Do you know?
So I just want to illustrate a point. If I produce to you a cup of water, it is 100% water. If I drop into that water something that would be the equivalent of 1 or 2% dilute orange juice, the fact of the matter is, to all taste, flavour, to all conditions, the orange juice, the water is water. It's not orange juice.
Hold on, would it become misty?
It would become misty.
No,
Yes.
no, we're being serious here, guys. I'll just
Absolutely.
film the public.
No,
as
you're
well.
absolutely right.
It would become misty.
However-
Would the taste change?
Hold on,
just
one second.
Just last question. Would the taste
Yes,
change?
the taste would change. However, the fact of the matter is, to every chemical analysis, that would be majority H2O.
Majority, but
Yes.
still it would have a mixture of orange juice, yes or no?
So my analogy stands.
No,
Now,
that-
in terms of the New
but
Testament,
I don't agree with that.
let
It
me
wouldn't
finish.
be pure water.
Let me
It-
finish. I
it
never
would
said
have
it was
problems.
pure water.
I know, but it
I
would
didn't
have
say.
differences.
My analogy shows that it's not pure water.
No, you said it would still
So,
be water.
let's just get on to this.
No, before we move on, Bob, you said it would still be water, correct?
I said it would be majority water.
No, first you said it would still be water.
Then allow me to correct myself if
Go
I
ahead.
misspoke.
Go ahead.
It's majority water.
Okay,
To
no
every
problem.
chemical analysis, it is
It
still
would have a mixture.
majority
It would
water.
have a
It would have a
mixture.
mixture, but it would still be majority water.
So
Now,
it wouldn't be Evian.
hold on one second. Hold on one second. What we find from textual criticism is that textual criticism disproves the Quran. Because
Bob,
the Quran
I told
says...
you, for the
Hold on
argument's
one
sake,
second.
we're atheists, but you're trying
Hold
to go
on.
to the Quran. You're going
I am
onto the
talking to you
Quran.
like an atheist, but
No,
you're an
You're
atheist
going onto
holding
the-
an Islamic channel, so I'm speaking to your viewers.
Bob, that's not very fair.
Why don't you want me
Like
to
I said
talk about the Quran?
Because no, I don't have a problem with you talking about
So
the
let me
Quran.
talk
But
about
what we
it.
were talking about is the
Let me talk
Bible.
about it.
And what you do is, Bob, sometimes if
No,
we're
it's
talking about
related to the topic.
No. What
I
we
am
were talk-
saying
I
that-
haven't even got a clear answer. I haven't got a clear answer.
Let's be clear.
Let me finish up my
Let
answer.
me finish my point.
No.
You're
ahead.
asking
Go ahead.
questions,
I'll be
I'm
nice to
answering.
Bob.
So let me.
Go ahead,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Go
So
ahead.
textual criticism disproves the Quran.
Ah,
The
Bob.
textual
We're still going
criticism
on
that
to
you're
this, see?
talking about nullifies the testimony
It
of
does
the
not,
Quran.
Bob. It does
because
not,
the
and
Quran
you've been told this many
says
times, Bob.
that no one can change the
That's
word
correct,
of
Bob.
Allah. Yes, and was the Injil the word of Allah?
Are we going off?
Answer
Bob,
the question.
Bob, are we going
Was
off?
Injil
When
the
it's-
word of
when-
Allah?
Okay, watch this. When it's talking about the word of Allah, we're talking about the Quran at that point.
No,
You know
no,
that,
no.
Bob. We've explained this many times. Now, Bob, what it is I'm not easy to drag into a totally separate conversation. Do you understand? That's what
Yeah.
cameramen do. They stand there, they observe.
Yeah.
So that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I asked you a simple question.
And I'm answering it.
And you haven't finished. No.
The
What happens?
implication.
No, Bob. Then we'll end the conversation, Bob. Don't be like this.
Go on.
Because it's very simple. If we're having a conversation, I ask you a simple question, you haven't answered it. And then what happens usually, and as with Hashim and many others, we start to float off in a different direction. Now that's what I don't like, Bob.
So, what's your
if
question?
That's, if
What's
that's
your
what-
question?
I already asked you it. And what you have done is you've
We've-
answered it.
we've
No,
answered
I
it.
think
Yeah,
I believe
we've
you
answered
answered
it.
it. And what it was, just
Yeah.
to clarify, because I'm saying.
But the
Let
and
me
what I'm
clarify
saying
it. Hold on a second, Bob.
Go
Let's
on,
clarify it.
clarify it with a
The
question.
fact was
Sorry.
that if that's all right,
Apologies.
go on, finish off.
I'm here. I'm filming.
Yeah.
I'm filming.
Listen, so the fact it's your wife call, you know.
Wait,
Listen, so the
what?
fact of the matter is, if there was text found older than the Codex Sinaiticus,
Which there are.
which no,
What?
fuller
Wait,
text.
behind
I'm
you.
talking about older.
Theoretically,
Hypothetically,
we're doing a minor
we're
thought.
talking about
Okay.
hypothetically, if
yep,
we
yep,
found
yep.
a book
Yep,
older than the
I get the
Codex
thought experiment.
Sinaiticus.
What's the question?
That's fine. No, let me clarify for the subject.
Yep.
If there was a book
go.
found older than the Codex Sinaiticus, then today we could even disprove the NIV. There could be serious problems with the books and the trust in the verses of the NIV. Is this correct or not?
Your question is faulty at many levels.
This is what you said earlier on, Bob. That's why I'm
It is.
confused.
It's faulty because you're assuming that the NIV is some kind of authoritative text. Your question is faulty because you're assuming that my faith has to work like your faith.
No,
The fact that there are textual variants in Quranic manuscripts is a problem for
Bob,
Islam.
see that- he keeps doing
Textual
this.
variants in the
Okay,
Bible Bible, textual
Bob, you're not
variants
gonna
in the
answer.
Bible,
Because it's simple.
textual variants in the
Go on.
Bible
Yeah.
are only a problem for us if they affect essential doctrine, which they
So
do not.
that's what I'm saying. That tomorrow, if a book is found older than the Codex Sinaiticus, and there's textual variances that make serious
Are we talking-
issues with the.
are we
Hold on a second,
talking about a new book?
Let me finish. Another book. No. We're talking about older manuscript.
An older manuscript.
Older than Codex Sinaiticus.
Yes,
that
which we
affects
already
the
have.
core.
Yeah.
A fuller one that affects the core of Christianity. Would you then admit that that's a danger? Is that a danger?
Theoretically, to honour the thought experiment, because I often ask
That's
people
fair.
to do thought experiments. If we found an ancient manuscript that theologically contradicted what Christians believe today, that would certainly pose some difficult questions. However, the assumption is that such a text exists.
Of course.
We haven't found such
That's
a
fair,
text.
that's fair.
We don't know where any such theoretical text exists.
But the risk exists. That's all I was asking you.
Well-
I'm not trying to pull a fast one. I'm just stating clearly.
The thing is, we Christians are constantly looking for older texts. It
I
isn't.
can find people who would say otherwise.
isn't.
However,
They would
what we-
be ignorant
remember,
of the faith.
That's fine. Okay. Listen, my point is this, and I'll finish on this: that if an older manuscript was found, it would cause a serious issue, especially if it had some core doctrines that were changed. Is that fact?
If that happened as you
I'll let you finish.
describe, if that happened as you described, then yes, it would. However, what we find is that as we found older manuscripts, they have confirmed what we believe rather than disproven what we believe. And furthermore, when we find ancient manuscripts of the Quran, this contradicts the doctrine of Nazil. Now, I would dare you, SCDawah, to broadcast this without
Of course
editing
I will.
or without change.
No editing
I'll be
whatsoever.
checking.
But Bob,
I'll be checking.
check this, Bob. You know as well as me that that is a bit of an underhanded little uppercut. Now, if we get Hashim over here or Mansour over here, they'll be able to answer that in 2 seconds. They have done
Then
before,
why didn't they
but you
answer that
don't
when Hatun
accept
gave
it. That's
them the
the problem.
chance?
They have Hatun
gave them the chance.
Do you know they've stopped debating Hatun?
Hatun
You know they've stopped.
demolished Mansour.
Now,
Go and look at
that's
the debate on
embarrassing.
DCCI.
You're embarrassing
Go and
yourself
look
now.
at the debate.
Now you're embarrassing
I
yourself.
I listened to that.
There's people laughing
Yeah,
literally
they are,
at that
they
comment.
are. And they're all part of the Islamic
Bob, that
Dawah
was
team,
hilarious.
so what?
There is no Islamic Dawah team, Bob. But
Okay,
take care. It's
take
been a
care of
pleasure.
yourself. Have a
Take
nice
care.
day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you later, JC.
So what I would say to you guys, like, if you're going to create a standard, you have to be consistent to the standard that you create. If you're going to say something like that the textual variants of New Testament manuscripts mean that we must reject the Christian faith, then that means that what you're saying is that the Quran is wrong. When Muhammad was instructed to go to the people of the book and to tell them to judge by what is in their book. If Muhammad is instructed to go and tell the people of the book to judge by what is in their book, Allah is assuming that the book is reliable. So who is right, Allah or the Muslims? Now, furthermore, it says in the Quran clearly no one can change the word of Allah. Now, if no one can change the word of Allah, and the Injil was the word of Allah, and the Torah was the word of Allah, then that means no one can change the Injil or the Torah. So textual criticism, whilst not being a threat to the Christian faith, is actually a debunking of the Quranic position. And furthermore, textual variants of the Quran, like the pamphlets that's found in Sana, like the comparison of the Topkani and the Samarkand to the 1924 version of the Hafs Quran we have today, they have textual variants. So be consistent. Your own texts have problems. Your own texts have problems. And it is the only one who's threatened by that is the group that believes that a changed book can't be the word of God. And it's Muslims, not Christians, who believe that. So this problem is a Muslim problem, not a Christian problem. Our faith is based upon the teaching of the church and its doctrines. Those doctrines are found in their entirety in the New Testament. Textual variations don't challenge that. The ones that are challenged by textual variants are Muslims because of the textual variants in the Quran. If you don't believe me, get your 1924 Hafs version of the Quran and go and compare it to the Samarkand. Go and compare it to the Topkani. Go and compare it to the pamphlets found in Sana, and you will see textual variants. If none can change the word of Allah, why are the words of Allah different in the different Qurans?